Hi there. Welcome everyone to the seventh episode in our latest series of Kelly Ignite, where we'll be exploring innovative ideas that spark the new world of work. You know me, I'm Alex Foster, Senior Director of People Strategy and Experience. And you know what? We're going to dive right in because you all know the drill. First, if there are any other topics, ideas, best practices that you'd like to see us discuss on the show, please drop them in the chat below. I know personally that when we started this series, I had this notion of human agility, and my definition was really focused on learning, being agile and speed. But now that I've had an opportunity to connect with different thought leaders in this space, my perspective has deepened quite a bit. And I've really been focused on balance, right? And what is the balance, not only internally, but with the world around us as we think about human agility, from culture to politics to industry and more. So speaking of industry, let's jump into our next trend in our research on human agility, rethinking the service economy. And this is the idea that we can and need to create more and better accessible service experiences for our workforces, ones that create better human connections. Today's service-first economy demands a new focus on intangibles, representation, and equity for all demographics and consumers and talent alike. I have two guests with me, as you can see today, Nish, the CEO of Reframing, and my colleague and VP of Product Development at Kelly, Ed. So glad to have you both on the show today. I'll give you a moment just to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Nish?
Sure. Hello, Nish Parikh. I'm a co-founder. First of all, thank you, Alex. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the partnership. At Rangam, our mission is to promote employment for everyone, inclusive of people with disability, people on the autism spectrum, and disabled veterans. We have a culture of empathy, and through this empathetic culture, we are constantly building innovative workforce solutions. And that's what we really do.
Awesome. Ed?
Yeah, so as you said, Ed Peterson, I lead the product development organization for Kelly. It's an interesting job. It's one of my passions that I've really kind of thrived in. I've been with Kelly for, I think, about 4.5 years now. Prior to that, I was a customer working at John Deere for 17 years, and it's been great getting to know the whole staffing landscape and what have you. But got to know Nish through the course of product development. We did a hackathon actually last year where we said, hey, with our small group that we have within product development, there's a bunch of ideas that we'd like to get into that we just don't have the capacity for. So we put the challenge out to our supply base, to our partner suppliers in that supply base. And Nish and the Rangam team submitted a wonderful idea that we brought forth, and actually excited to talk about that a little bit here today because we're releasing that out into the marketplace.
Awesome. And then Nish, if you could tell everyone, talk to us about the story with neurodiversity and how is that a focus for your organization?
Yeah, it has been quite a journey. We started with very similar this type of conversation with a friend, and he said, Nish, when our kids, when we graduate, we all celebrate neurotypical high school graduates. And the graduation I'm coming from, parents are sitting in the parking lot. They're worried. They are concerned what's going to happen next week, Monday morning, when there is no school. So,
hey, Nish.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. Do you have headphones handy, maybe? May help.
Let me.
Yeah, the internet can be difficult sometimes with doing live events.
Say, is that better?
Is that better?
It is for now. Yep, we'll give it another go.
Okay, great. Thank you. And sorry about that.
Thanks,
so what we learned, we started, I personally, me and Hetal and the family, we started working with some of the local schools in the special needs education community. And we started learning about and volunteering our time and efforts with children on the special needs. And in 2010, we got a grant money to sponsor a program at one of the special needs school in Princeton, New Jersey. And so that time I was working on learning management system to teach children with autism, and we installed one kiosk system in the classroom. The goal was a child on the spectrum is one, and how do we create this synchronized holistic approach to teach children with autism? And we installed this kiosk system in the classroom with the camera, so we keep track of the child's eye movement and keep track of all the activities on the screen and every touch on the screen, so that we can capture their attention span and make education really fun. And during this and through this process, how do we improve the quality of intervention to teach children with autism who has a huge challenge of attention span? And when we were doing just a visit with the foundation, and someone part of the program, 10-year-old girl, she was learning time checking, and she got all 6 answers right. And she's, imagine, and she got 6 answers right, and there was a beautiful animation played on the screen, and she literally started clapping. And when I saw that, and I was like, this is the area I can really make an impact. I would really like to put efforts and make the education fun and help these individuals have that meaningful employment. So that's really how it started. Now almost over 17 years, and it has been just journey of this type of similar events pretty much almost every day, and it's just a great partnership and learning experience throughout this journey.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Nish, for sharing. I really love hearing the passion and the learning and experience that you've had about impacting someone's life, right? And that's the work that we do. If I turn it over to Ed, though, for a second, you have some unique teams at Kelly. And I want to give you an opportunity to kind of weigh in on what it is that you do. Tell us about your work with human agility. And then, Nish, we're still having a little bit of echo hearing you. So maybe if you adjust closer to your monitor, that might help our viewers hear a little bit better. So over to you, Ed.
Yeah, you bet. So, when we got started with product development a couple of years ago, we had a number of different questions that we needed to answer. But, one of them was, where are we going to look for ideas? What's going to be our guiding principles? What's the theme that can help, drive, how do we push, products forward with Kelly? And that's really kind of where human agility was born out of. And we had a small little think tank of individuals get together in a room, and we said, hey, what's going on in the world? What can Kelly impact, and the like? And we came up quickly with, 50, 100 different ideas of different socioeconomic, political, macroeconomic things that were going on in the world, everything from artificial intelligence to the space race to you name it. And so as we started to peel that back and we started to look at what was impacting our customers, this idea of agility came out, and we noticed that there was a storyline on both the customer as well as the talent side of the equation. And on the customer side, a lot of companies, major Fortune 500 companies, were making big, bold statements about, what they were going to do from a strategic direction with their company. We had, companies like Toyota saying, hey, we're going to be a mobility company and moving beyond, automotive, truck, those sorts of things, and getting into robotics and prosthetic limbs in a whole, realm of different items that were related to mobility. Sure. You look at companies like Ford, where they're really doubling down on the connected city concept and what have you. And we said with this large change in their strategic direction that they're going to need to make over the next 5-10 years or what have you, they're going to need to be agile, and they're going to need to have many different skill sets that currently aren't in their organizations today. And so we thought from the Kelly perspective, because we specialize in staffing and talent and helping satisfy those needs, that we could help unveil and go down that journey with them so that they can have the right talent at the right time, at the right place. And likewise, on the talent side of the equation, it was kind of a similar story, right? It was the pace of change is very fast. And if you take, like, the example I always like to use is that of a truck driver, where very in demand today. You could quit your job with one company today and start with another company tomorrow. Chances are at a higher pay rate, those sorts of things. What's going to happen to those types of roles in the economy once the autonomous truck is here? And the role of a truck driver needs to transform into something else. And so with Kelly being very focused on education, both in the K through 12 space, but also into higher ed and in mid-career reskilling and upskilling, those sorts of things, we feel like we can have a very solid role for helping talent along this journey. And so we just started kind of like looking around for all different sorts of ideas. We hosted the hackathon, as I mentioned earlier, and that then culminated in today. We actually just released a press release on our next new innovation, which we're calling Kelly Discover.
Tell us more about Kelly Discover, Ed. Excited to hear.
I'm very excited about this. Is one of my favorite products that my team has been pushing out, and it's an intentional way that we can help customers bring diverse and inclusive talent into their workforce. It can be for both full-time roles as well as for contingent and temporary roles. But we're initially focused on neurodiverse individuals, which is the random piece of the equation here. They've got tons of expertise in their source-abled solution for what it means to engage with neurodiverse individuals. Everything from how do you conduct interviews, how do you interact with them once they come on site with you, and the like, so that you can ease the path and allow for those sorts of things. But we're also focused on another talent category called opportunity youth, which is typically 18 to 24, 25-year-olds, typically come from an inner city background that haven't followed kind of a traditional higher ed route, and wouldn't necessarily have the same path or access into some of the companies that we interface on a regular basis. So we can help create the pathways for those sorts of individuals to connect with employers that are looking for a way to bring more diversity into their workforce.
Well, great. That's definitely exciting to hear. Excited about the partnership, but also the impact that we'll be having. So, Nish, as you think about this research and some of the things that we've discussed thus far, what are your thoughts? What are your observations?
I think this is really truly, it's creating shared values, right? And making a societal impact. As we all know, in United States, there are about 61 million people has some kind of a visible or invisible disability. Only 4 adults out of 10 are employed. And that is a huge untapped talent, right? So as an organization, we see a great opportunity to innovate in this area, build a workforce solution where we want to bring in and build more holistic workforce solution for our customers. And through this partnership with Kelly, goal is how do we offer this type of a holistic solution to our customer and bring neurodiverse talent to workplace where they really are looking for a break. They really are looking for an opportunity to start their career. And in our case, when we talk about the workforce solution as a service provider, we are dealing with 2 types of customers. One is our paying customers and one is our candidate pool. Now, the customers, when we talk about customers who is really looking to have this diverse, untapped talent pool, their level of, I would say, requirement or their level of the disability inclusion program differs. So it has to be customized for every customer. On the other side, some of our talent pool, they really are looking for an organization where they are not misunderstood. So our role, our goal is to make this connection when there is a need, when companies are open to welcome this untapped talent, and this talent pool is ready to go to work. We want to make sure that the right environment, as Ed mentioned, right environment is created, empathetic culture is built, and these individuals are successful once we bring them in, because sustainability is one of the huge challenge. And one of the quote, if you don't mind, I would love to share one of the quote we have received recently from one of the candidate. And it's working at the client side has been a great experience, and I'm excited as I'm transitioning to become an employee for the client. I have never worked with a staffing agency before, and appreciated finding this career opportunity through Rangam. When joining the client through Rangam, I had the chance to get to know the work, learn my team, who they are, and let them learn about me. This is important. When you talk to anyone, any individual with disability or neurodiverse talent, for them the topmost priority is, I want to work in the environment where I'm not misunderstood. That is so important. And and I felt a part of the team and the organization. Everyone was really helpful and supportive. That's what we do. That's what we do as Sourceable, and as a solution, as a Discover program in partnership with Cali.
Thanks for sharing. And for those of you interested, we have a link there to learn more about Kelly Discover. And Nish, what you're talking there is a little bit about connection, which we've covered in this series, but you're also talking about empathy. And so I guess my next question, and I'll throw this out to both you and Ed, is what in particular is changing as we think about leadership and how empathy plays a role, either with your employees or as you're interfacing with talent that you want to engage and ultimately hire and acclimate to the workplace?
Yeah, maybe if I'll jump in here a little bit. So empathy is probably infinitely more important now in kind of a post-COVID world than before. It was always important, but as we all got locked into our houses and have to work from home, and the social capabilities are not as existent as they once were. Leaders need to be empathetic in terms for the very real issues and problems and challenges that our employees deal with on a regular basis. I've got some folks on my team that have young children, and my hat's off to anybody who has young children that's trying to balance like a work life from their home environment and virtual school and all those sorts of things. Like I literally got a photo from one of my team members, I think it was last week, where she had taken a picture of her office that she set up, which was in the back of her minivan because all of her kids were taking up all the other, areas in their house for virtual school. But that was the only quiet place that she could find. And, you need to be empathetic and understanding what everybody's dealing with, and allow for people to work flexible hours, allow people to take the time off for mental health breaks and the like. That it's just so incredibly important. And I don't think we're really ever going to go back from that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's kind of a good place to be, right? Too, where you, if we thought that there were things stopping us from connecting with our teams in a different way, those barriers have been somewhat removed. Nish, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so what we have seen and experienced this, every one of us everyone has our own range of empathy, right? And so everyone has all good intentions to bring this untapped talent, individuals with disability or neurodiverse talent, to help them with the meaningful job. So and also every one of us is connected to someone with disability, so we understand that there is a need. The challenge is, how do we start? Where do we start? So that's one of the challenge which we have seen. And if we can build a program and a solution where customers can rely on us and say, yes, we have a formal program, and any support we need, we pick up the phone or send a message, and we will get all the support we need to create that empathetic culture and help these individuals to be successful. Also, what we have also seen, that this empathetic culture is not new in a corporate world. Leaders has been talking about this, and we have been talking about creating awareness at workplace. So creating the training programs and all that, that's a great start. But the challenge is, how do we nurture and sustain this empathetic culture at workplace, right? Because sometimes individuals can be empathetic, but if they are not aware, because empathy is driven by your knowledge and awareness related to the other person's challenges, and we have seen that and we have experienced that. So I think that nurturing and ongoing support and preserving and sustaining that at the workplace, when the workplace has become so dynamic, that is so important to just maintain that and provide that ongoing support to our customers.
Yeah, no, I think what you're getting at, the core of a little bit there, sorry, Ed, is just around how are we acknowledging members of our team for who they are, right? Because you can't be empathetic with someone that you don't know enough that there's an opportunity to be empathetic. And we've seen some good work. Happy to hear from our listeners, our viewers, if you all have best practices or things that you've seen exhibited in your workplace that you've led, you've introduced to your team that create opportunities for us to have deeper connections, to learn our teams more, and then certainly to share more empathy during this time of great need. But as Ed said, it's always been important. And as Nish mentioned, it's always been on the agenda. We just need to get in the habit of doing it more frequently and more consistently. Ed, I think you were going to weigh in.
Yeah, just the whole topic of rethinking the service economy, with bringing empathy to the forefront, and then where my mind goes, from the product development standpoint, is what does that mean for the future, and how do I help the world kind of reposition for that, and the different solutions and offerings that we bring as a company. But some of the research that was done for this human agility LinkedIn Live series, there was one story that just keeps on popping out to me that speaks to this. It ties into some of the other topics that you discussed with the other guests. I think it was around being human. Is we shouldn't be afraid of these changes either, and it can bring great advantages and great opportunities to the economy that we previously didn't think about. And the example was there's a Japanese coffee shop, and what they did was they brought robots, like completely different labor channel, into the coffee shop where they would interact with the guests, and you can order from the robot, and they would, go get your coffee and what have you, bring it back to you and take your money. But what was truly powerful to me about that is the robots were not autonomous. They were powered by folks with disabilities, quadriplegics and paraplegics that couldn't normally be in a service industry like that they're, operating them from either their homes, their hospital rooms, or wherever, and they have a chance to engage in the economy just like the rest of us would. So it was pretty powerful. So if you kind of reframe your thinking around this and look for the opportunity that lies underneath it, there's some really powerful things that can happen that open up previous unthought opportunities.
Yeah, that reframing the mindset you just mentioned. Let me tell you, that's exactly what somebody has asked. What examples can you share about where you have brought in empathy into your organization? That changing the mindset, and I can give you a couple of examples. One example is our screening method. We are used to do screen out candidates. I have this job and I have this candidate. Whether this candidate is meeting the criteria defined or needed by the client, so we screen them out. Okay, there is a match, we make the submission. Screening is what we really do, is we help on the both sides and explain and convince hiring managers that where they are willing to compromise and they are willing to consider someone who will able to do the job with less experience, right? That is empathetic approach, because we take that pain, and that's what we do as a empathetic, I would say, consultative approach to our customers. Another approach is someone was hired for a job, some XYZ job, and was doing amazing because person was supported by someone in that empathetic environment. But the person who was the champion or a buddy or a mentor has moved on, and now this person is alone and struggling. How do we recognize that creating that culture, that support system, that natural support system? That is the empathetic way to work with the workforce, right? Work and providing that support using the natural support system. We want to recognize that and find, maybe tweak the role a little bit here and there, provide some accommodations, and this accommodation doesn't cost thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars. It's just a matter of taking that empathetic approach and working with individual and provide that support so that they are successful at work.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about reframing. Sometimes I call it reimagining when I speak with my team, and it's like, what did you think the issue or the opportunity was, and how do you think about it differently? In particular, when you think about different types of individuals coming into a work setting, you think about how can we make it more inclusive for them. But the reality of it is, there's some benefit. Ed, your example highlighted that. Where's the benefit for the organization? Where's the benefit for the customers and the clients? So there's multiple stakeholders that we have represented that can win if we shift our thinking and seek to be more empathetic, right? Many folks win, right? It's a multiplier effect on who wins and who gains value out of this type of approach. So it's so great to hear you guys think about that. And, Kelly, we've shared this recently, that we got to focus this body of work called equity at work, right? And we're asking ourselves the same questions, not just for our own employees, the talent that we provide, the clients, the world around us. How are we thinking differently about those barriers to work and removing them? And we know that there's a connection and there's a commitment to the person on the end of that, but then that there's also benefit from everyone who participates in that ecosystem. So really great to hear us talking about this work. And we have a question. How would you go about convincing this idea in the industry? Perhaps the employer has a different perspective. What are your guys' thoughts there?
I would say, sorry, go ahead.
No, I said go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say our approach is, leaders, they have recognized this. And what our pretty much all organizations we work with, these are global large employers. When leaders, when they see the success, and they have seen, and in fact, this is something which I always go out and share, that we have enough pilot programs and enough success stories out there where leaders, they have recognized this. And when they take the lead, that's when we can really make the change, bring that change. So if we have to convince somebody who is passionate about bringing this change to the organization, but with limited access to resources and decision making, that has been challenging. And what we have seen, those initiatives are there. Now, what we have started seeing, when C-level executives are taking the lead, that's when things have started moving rapidly.
Yeah, the piece that I would add on to that is, by and large, most employers want to have diversity and inclusion. They want to champion these sorts of causes. You've got C-level sponsorship and what have you. And what people tend to struggle, or companies tend to struggle with, is how do they take that step? How do they take the first step into making this happen? There's usually, some sort of, budget discussion or what have you. And that's, another beauty of the Kelly Discover program, is what we're trying to do is make it frictionless for these employers. And so, like, you want a diverse and inclusive workforce for either your contingent program or your full-time hire or what have you. Great. You're already set up with us as your managed service provider, and we can just hook that into what we already do from a technology, from a compliance, from a process, from the people standpoint. And we can give you access into organizations like Random Source Able Solution for Neurodiverse and other areas that will continue to build out that product around in a very frictionless way. They don't need a big implementation. They don't need to worry about integrations. They don't need, you can pick the pilot programs and you can start, on those sorts of solutions. So that's where I think the power is. And that's what we're constantly assessing, is when you have big problems like this, like, people do generally and genuinely want to solve for it. It's just we can be there to help them take that first step.
Yeah. Well, we've had some really good dialogue. We had a wonderful announcement too about our partnership, and really, Ed and Nish, have enjoyed our time together. We'll close it out with just one final question. I'm gonna limit you. You got like 10 seconds to respond here. Can organizations afford not to think about how to be more inclusive of different levels of ability and different approaches to work in the future? Can they afford to ignore this trend?
So for me, the answer is no, they can't afford to. And if you look at the data, and the number that sticks out to me is that organizations that embrace a diverse and inclusive workforce are 21% more productive than had they not had any sort of program before. So it's like the economics just suggest that no, you can't ignore it because it makes all the sense in the world.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nish?
I share the same answer is no, and let me tell you why. Because everyone, when we talk about disability and autism, it's a true diversity. Autism and disability is not saying color, gender, ethnicity. So it is everyone. And we cannot afford, as a whole, as a society, 1 out of 4 adult has visible or invisible disability. So 25% of the workforce we cannot ignore. And we have to be inclusive. We have to put the right system. So when this workforce exists in our the current society and workplace, we just need to create the right environment, make sure that they are successful. So as a whole, as an organization is successful, and we have true diversity and innovation at workplace. So we cannot afford to ignore this population.
Wonderful responses that help our participants and viewers think about how to approach this in their workplace. We can't afford to ignore this very important, very productive portion of our workforce. Such an impact that they can have. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments section. As always, we'll be sure to include important links that we covered in today's episodes on kellyignite.com. There you can also check out this and other episodes. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to continue our discussions. You all have given us a lot to think about, and you have already put it in the comments and in the chat what you'd like to hear more from and what types of topics you'd like thought leaders to come and speak about in the future. We love your feedback, so keep it coming. Also, don't forget to mark your calendars for Tuesday, November 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll have an additional episode, more to come on who our guests will be at that time, but we know we'll have good conversation either way. So I can't wait to see you all again. Nish, Ed, thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks,
Thank you, Alex. Take care.